Welcome back to Embracing New Life, and on this week's episode we are diving into part 2 of our interview with Scott Dawley. If you haven't seen or listened to the first episode, part 1, then we would encourage you to go back and reference that and then dive into this second part with Scott Dawley. But if you have, welcome back, and without any further ado, we'll begin part 2 of our interview with Scott Dawley.
That's awesome. And so there's an action orientation here. You're looking to see, do some things different. Mm-hmm. And in transition, there's a requirement to do things different.
So true.
But often our people, as they're facing transitions, there's a sense of being frozen.
Yeah, they're stuck.
Stuck.
Yeah.
What used to work doesn't work now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're afraid, like fearful of making a wrong move because they've never been there before.
Uh-huh.
And then fearful of being judged if they make the wrong move and everybody sees them fall flat on their face. Mm-hmm. And then we get back to remind them that we all fall flat on our face.
Yes.
And that's a human thing. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So that permission giving is also part of it. And you're not describing giving permission to destructive things,
No.
but what sometimes is lost is many times there's a lot of good ways to do something.
For sure.
Not just one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So try another one. Yeah.
Try another good one. Yes. Uh-huh. Do you see that when people start the change process, there's probably several different courses they take, but do you see sometimes people will freeze or change is starting to happen and then they back away?
Yeah. We all have our normals.
Uh-huh.
The way I explain it when I'm talking to folks is during our first 20 or 25 years of life, we learn what normal is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go out and we try and recreate that normal. And then we get to that point where we're like, that didn't work so well. I want to try something different. But this has a gravitational pull to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to tend to get pulled back to our normal all on our own. Then let's throw something else in. Our family systems that we are part of that also have that same normal, they're going to be appalled that we have the audacity to go out and find our own normal. And they're going to be trying pulling us back and guilting and shaming us into that and helping people go, well, you know what? You got to let them live their normal. You're going to develop your own now. So you do get stuck.
And what are some things that you have found helpful to do with them when they're stuck? They've been making some progress and they're stuck.
Stuck in moving toward their own...
Moving towards their own goals.
Uh-huh. Part of it comes back to the permission.
Uh-huh.
Part of it comes back to an affirmation. I was going to say reassurance, not in an OCD way, but an affirmation of who they are and that the new normal they're moving toward is perfectly reasonable. For a lot of people, maybe they've got overbearing families of origin, parents, maybe they're in their 20s, 30s, still trying to live a life of their own. And letting them hear, your parents need to grow up a little bit and let you go out and do your own thing now. Oh, really? You mean I don't have to? No, you don't have to. Just keep...
It's interesting you described that, because one of the things that I learned personally as my children moved into adulthood and marriage and such, we, the generation ahead, we need to keep growing about a half a step ahead of them growing, and that they continue to grow. And in my scenario, my daughter now has teenagers. I need to keep growing as I'm the parent of a parent with teenagers.
Yeah.
So that's, the transitions are normal, they're to be expected, and they're always surprising and new.
With no guarantee that it's always going to be better.
or the outcome we
Sometimes-
want. Yeah.
Say it again, what?
Or the outcome we want.
Right, and it may
Right.
be different, and
Yes.
so then it's a question of, well, am I going to go back and try and force fit the solution that I wanted,
Uh-huh.
or do I just kind of need to let the stick drift by on the river
Uh-huh.
and say, well, there goes that stick. I guess I got to
Yeah.
wait for the next one, and life is going to look different.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sure will. Scenarios where that's really obvious are like when a loved one dies, or when a relationship dies, like a divorce,
Yeah.
where the transition may not have been wanted, but it's real, and it is what it is. Sometimes we sit with people in that recognition.
Yeah.
How do we move forward when the transition isn't leading us to where we want it to lead us to?
Well, let's talk about that.
Mhm.
I don't have that's a
Well, I think it does start with redeveloping new expectations and goals, right? Because you have a set of goals and expectations that were tied to a certain
yeah.
trajectory, and now that trajectory has changed, and so you
Yeah.
just naturally have to. Okay, well, let's it comes back to let's brainstorm. Let's get outside the 4x4 card of what we thought it was going to be, and what can it look like now. I mean, it's not what you wanted, like you said, but it is what it is, and so what could it be? And just dream about it and help them kind of catch a hope and a vision for something new, albeit different from what they were wanting, 5 days ago. And I think that's at least one part of the puzzle that you have to.
We were talking earlier about the grieving of what has been lost, but in some of these scenarios, like you're describing, it can't be how I want it to be.
Yeah.
I had a widow yesterday share. She saw a sign, "I wish heaven had visiting hours." And her spouse has been gone many, many years. But how do we help build the new life? It's one of the things I like about the name of the clinic. That it's not just like I got one life, I got to slug my way through it. But we are building a new life with a transition.
Well, and even living in Wisconsin, right? We go through seasons inevitably that come and go, that create death and destruction sometimes. But there's always a rebirth that comes out of it, So that possibility, that's probably part of it too, is the possibility of the new life that exists in this new direction that we're headed. Because a lot of people just feel hopeless because it's like it's not what I wanted,
Right.
or not what I expected. And there's like, no, there can be new life in this new direction.
Different than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But it can be good.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be good. Yeah, that's powerful when you can help people see it can be good.
And couple that with, and we've heard the term radical acceptance.
Yes.
Couple that with radical gratitude.
Yes.
Let's look at those two together. Radical acceptance. Yes, that person is gone out of my life now, and I can't change it, and no amount of cajoling or crying or nothing is going to bring that person or that thing back into my life. So I just need to say that is my new reality. Couple that with radical gratitude. Okay, now that that's your new reality, what are the things around you that you can still be grateful for?
Yeah.
That you can look to and say, okay, life is still good in some ways. Not that it negates the loss.
Not at all.
Right.
In fact, they go together. I have this loss, and I have this other goodness that I'm experiencing. I can actually experience those both.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
As opposed to black and white, one or the
Yeah.
other. Right.
Yeah, I'm thinking, how often do we help someone hold both at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not a natural thing.
It's not a natural thing. We humans tend to be dichotomous, either or, black or white.
Yeah.
But here, deep pain, great loss, reality, never what I thought it was going to be going forward. Goodness, love is present. one doesn't cancel the other. And what we find, I think, as the journey continues, is being able to hold both makes the goodness all the more potent, more powerful in our life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've often wondered too. I mean, this is kind of a side note, but in that same vein of like, and there's a lot of different forms of suffering. You know, Scripture talks about suffering, but I've often wondered if that isn't part of the suffering that Christians are called to experience. Is the already not yet experience of like, we know this isn't how God designed it. We know that He has better days ahead, but we live in the the in between, and there's a lot of deep suffering that occurs because we can have hope and joy, but we also have a lot of hard, sad, grief-ridden days that go together. And holding the two together, I think, is a part of the suffering that we experience as believers.
That's interesting. If we think of transitions as the space in between.
Yeah.
This is how it was, and I was kind of tooled along that pretty good.
Yeah.
And now I'm in between how it's going to be and how it was.
Yeah. Yep.
And we try and get our navigation, we try and get our bearings when we're in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I picture that sometimes we come alongside someone who's in that in between, and just being heard, being understood, starts to bring some clarity and some calmness.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are skills we can teach.
For sure.
There are perspectives we offer that shift the view a bit so they can find a place to get bearings.
Sometimes that might involve doing less or doing nothing. The value of sabbaticals, the value of solitude and silence. That's another common thing that I will work with people on. We live in a busy brain society, so now we have busy brains, and we got our devices with us, and we don't have time to stop and think.
Constantly bombarded.
It's constant noise.
Yes, it is.
And the value of turning your phone off, leaving it at home, taking a chair and go and sit in the middle of the woods somewhere, and be in God's creation and in His presence. There's so much that's healing and restorative about nature.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good reminder, especially in the midst of a transition, that sometimes the best thing to do is not press forward as fast as you can, but just slow down and stop.
Yeah.
And that's okay,
To delay impulses.
Yeah.
To find a way to be in quiet. That's thinking.
Saint Ignatius, in his development of the Ignatian spiritual exercises, talked about the concept of consolation and desolation. Consolation is where we just feel a sense of peace about some intended direction or something we're going to do differently. Desolation is where it just feels really unsettled. And what Ignatius said is, when you're in that state of desolation, don't change anything. Don't go back, don't go forward. Just don't, because you don't know where you're at right now.
Yeah.
And sitting and waiting and letting our minds dial down till we feel that experience of peace helps us make the next steps better.
And often we need permission and then encouragement to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because society says go, go, go. That's for sure.
What about people who get stuck in their treatment? I'm sure we've all had it happen where people are coming to deal with depression or anxiety issues, and we do all the stuff that we know how to do, and they get stuck there. Call it treatment-resistant depression or anxiety or whatever. What do we tell those people? Well, sorry. How do we convey hope to them?
It is interesting with all the technology that's developed, and a lot has changed in the last years. There are still those treatment-resistant situations that we encounter. The person wants to be better, and they're not. The depression continues to torment them, etc. Mother Teresa, interestingly, appeared to have that experience.
The dark night of the soul for her whole life, pretty much, right? Yes.
Whole life. And she found meaning in it. She didn't understand why. And that is a reality that I think is really important to help people accept. There's most everything we won't understand why. But I think of that really, I'd call it a very odd story in the book of Job. That is a strange story.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully, I don't know of it ever happening twice. But in that story, it wasn't concluded by understanding why, but understanding what. And I think sometimes we help our clients accept we don't know why. We don't know. Is it a genetic thing? Is it due to a brain injury at some point that wasn't registered? Don't know. Didn't recognize when it happened. Is it? We don't know. But our hope is not in just understanding why. How do I live well given I have this challenge? And I've seen a number of people, they're still wrestling with depression, and they find hope in their coping with depression. Their hope now isn't that I will never have another depressive moment, but their hope is in not only in this life, their hope is in I'm going to appreciate that the sun is out today. When my grandchild comes over and smiles at me, I'm going to give him a hug. Very different than life's going to go the way I want it to.
Yeah.
Because we don't get that typically.
Yeah, back to gratitude.
Yes,
it's just
gratitude is so important.
Yeah.
Dan, you talked about it's not always about knowing the why.
Yeah.
It's sometimes about knowing the who. Right?
Yep.
As we've seen,
Yep.
foxhole Christians, or if we remember what the churches were like after 9/11, tragedy and chaos tends to drive us to God. So it's not about the why; it's about the who. Who's the person that I'm driving toward right now?
Yeah.
And how do I connect with him?
It's intriguing with cultural transitions that are so extreme, changes that are happening all around us on so many different levels in institutions and in countries and international, all the way to inside a family. Ultimately, we're always kind of challenged with where will I find comfort? Where do I turn? A little child usually turns to mom, dad, caretaker, whoever it is, because I need to find comfort. And in a transition, how I used to find comfort got disrupted.
Yeah.
Now, where do I find comfort? And just in my own personal journey, I'll share that my faith can't be in my institution or my government or even in my wife, who's pretty awesome.
Really awesome.
But she's one of us.
Yes.
So, where do I find comfort? I think is a question that we're always exploring, trying to answer that question. Transition just disrupts how we found it.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the cultural changes that we're in the middle of right now, I've been coming back to, let us therefore fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. I think it's in Hebrews 11 or 12 or something like that.
Yes.
And that's the who. That's the who. It's ultimately not life, liberty, and happiness. And I missed a word there, but it's about who is it that we're really in connection with.
Yes.
Yeah.
My faith is not in any of these others. I have thoughts and opinions and desires, but that's not my anchor. Nor my identity.
No, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Good stuff. Well, it was a great time having you on the podcast, Scott. We appreciate you stopping by and talking with us. I'm sure we'll definitely have you on again and talk about other stuff. So appreciate you sharing.
Sounds good. Good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks once again for joining us this week with this second part of our interview with Scott Dawley. The full unedited version of this interview will be up this coming Friday for our full episode Friday. And then the following Monday next week, we will release the first part of our interview with another one of our colleagues. Stick around and find out who that is come next week. Embracing New Life is a production of New Life Resources, a Christian counseling clinic in Southeast Wisconsin, whose aim and goal since 1976 has been to provide high-quality professional counseling, psychological, and consulting services from within a Christian framework.